Welcome to Ties That Bind, Law, Family, and Legacy.
Welcome back to Ties That Bind, Law, Family, and Legacy with Patti Garner. Patti is a Tennessee attorney who focuses on estate planning and probate, helping individuals and families make clear, thoughtful decisions about the future and avoid unnecessary complications down the road. With over 20 years of legal experience, she brings a straightforward, practical approach to these conversations. I'm Shameika Rhymes, and today we're talking about common estate planning mistakes that can create serious problems for families later on. Hi, Patti.
Hey, Shameika, how are you?
I'm doing well. How are you?
I'm good. So good to see you.
Good to see you. Let's talk about these common estate planning mistakes because I feel like things can go, down the wrong path sometimes when this is happening. So, Patti, when you look at the cases you've handled over the years, what are the most common estate planning mistakes that keep showing up?
We talked about this in one of our other meetings, but it is so often that people will forget to go check the beneficiaries that they named on their bank accounts. So you set up a bank account and you leave and you're what, 10, 15 years down the road before somebody has to look at that. You haven't either set it to the person that you meant for it to go to. You haven't set it to the estate plan. So then the trustee has to actually go and file a probate matter in order to get their hands on the money there. There are so many pitfalls with not following up and not looking at what my estate plan looks like every few years. It's not a one and done thing. You gotta look at it and then go back and look at it. Life happens. There are life triggers that come around, and if we don't touch base on those estate plans, then, when we pass away, it's not what we intended because we didn't do what we needed to do.
Yeah, so I'm like, I have to make sure I know who's going to get this $5 in my savings account moving forward, right? I need to do better with planning, right?
Well, we all do. We all do. That's the reason it's important to have these conversations and to really, think about what is it that I want where do I want my car to go? Where do I want my house to go? And that
Mhm.
kind of thing. The other thing that I see people do is they don't talk to their family members. They don't tell them where the documents are. They don't talk about this is what I want. We've got this nice painting or whatever, and this is who I want to have it, and then it's not specified anywhere. And so, you don't get Aunt Jules' picture that you were supposed to get that she had promised you all along. So, I mean, there's just a lot. And I think talking about it, touching your estate plan regularly, and I'm not talking every year because nobody wants to talk about it that often. But
Mhm.
every few years, it's important. And it's important to tell your kids or to tell your heirs where your stuff is and how to get to it whenever the time comes.
What if you don't have kids and you really don't have anybody to leave this stuff to?
That's a tough one, and I have planned several of those estates. Unfortunately, it's becoming more of a trend. Is there a charity that you want to leave your stuff to? Is there a safe space for animals or a safe space for women? Is there a mission for homeless people that you would like to give your estate to? All of that can be taken care of and set up so that somebody benefits from your stuff. And even if it's you think it's a minimal amount, those charities, those organizations, they really are funded based on those kind of contributions from people who, are kind enough to leave their estate to them.
That is a good point. I've never really thought about that. But what do people tend to assume that they've handled correctly when they actually really haven't?
In the state of Tennessee, I see a lot of people trying to do transfer on death deeds. And they're not valid here in Tennessee. And they do that, or they'll go ahead and put their child's name on a deed. So they're transferring the house over to their child or to their niece or nephew or whomever, trying to avoid that probate issue. And that really gets into some tax problems that we don't want to talk about.
Mhm.
Um, but there's a lot of consequences for doing those kind of things when we're doing them improperly, and it's really detrimental to the child or to the person receiving it for you to do that to them, and then especially without their knowledge.
So, what can happen when somebody passes away and they don't have an estate plan in place at all?
So then a probate estate must be opened, particularly if they own a house, a car, a 401k, anything. So you have to open a probate estate. You have to give notice to creditors. It takes a while. The biggest problem when you're in a situation like that is, particularly if the house has a house payment that's due, somebody has to make that house payment while we're going through this lengthy process. And that process in the state of Tennessee, the estate has to be open for a minimum of 4 months. And then it can drag out longer than that if you have creditors that file, if you have heirs that come forward, if we have a family that's fussing over, you know, Papa bills, coin collection, or whatever the case is. If they're fussing over it, then it really can be, it can take a long time to get through the process, and somebody's still having to make that house payment, or the mortgage company can come and foreclose on that house and take it, very quickly because the owner has passed away. So that's one of the biggest things. They don't it's a more lengthy process on a normal situation, but once somebody's passed away, they can move really quickly, and they do.
So, I'm going to throw a kink here into the mix because what if someone is in the process of putting this estate plan together and they have not gotten the copy notarized or brought back to you, and the house catches on fire with the documents in it?
So if it's not signed, it doesn't matter,
Okay.
because if it's not signed, it's not valid. Particularly if you had it drawn up through an attorney's office and you were just looking at the drafts,
Hmm.
then they'll just print it. I mean, I'm sorry that the house burned down, and that's awful and all the things that go along with it. But as far as saving the will or
Hmm.
the estate plan, that's not a problem at all. We just
Okay.
reprint that bad boy and set a day to sign.
Ah, well, that's good to know there's a backup plan.
That's right, always.
Well, how do outdated wills or documents create problems that families don't see coming?
Well, let's say that you create a will before you have children, and then you have 3 kids. So fast forward 15 years. One of those kids, maybe you don't particularly get along with, or maybe they've done some things that they don't think they could handle money. And if you, number one, haven't named them and haven't updated your will to even name them, and then you pass away, they're still going to get an equal share because you didn't follow up and take safeguards to protect them from their own wrongdoing.
Where do you see issues come up with things like beneficiary designations or how accounts are titled?
Those are so tricky because it's such an easy thing to fix that beneficiary. It's taken the 5 minutes to go do it. So if you don't go do that and you don't put the proper person's name on the dotted line, then potentially they don't get the money, or they don't get the account. They don't get the benefit of the 401k. I mean, it really is just a matter of touch the plan. Let's look at it. Let's see where you really want it to go, and take the 5 minutes and get it done.
What happens when an estate plan is too vague or it just doesn't clearly spell things out or mention all the things that families could possibly be fighting over later? Like you mentioned, like a painting or something as simple as like the stuffed animal or something like that.
That leaves a lot of interpretation when it's so vague. Then we open it up for the courts to get involved. And let's say we're talking about a really vague will, and there's so much there, and maybe it wasn't properly written, and or maybe they did a Zoom will. Or LegalZoom is what it's called. So maybe they've done something like that and they think they're all protected, and it can be so vague, when reality is, if you can be specific and you can really designate all of the things that are of value, particularly if it's worth more than uh, $250, then you need to say, this is where this is going. Otherwise, you do just leave it open for the courts to have to get involved. And typically what I see the court say is, put it in a yard sale, sell it, and divide the money.
Oh, wow. So, can you share a situation where you've seen where what seemed like a small mistake ended up causing a much bigger issue for the family?
I can. I had a case where dad was he was the breadwinner, and he had been married prior to his second marriage. And in that first marriage, there was a child who was an adult by the time he passed. But at some point, he had gotten onto LegalZoom and attempted to make a will. And everybody thought he had finished this will, but he hadn't. And so, and it was during the time of COVID. And unfortunately, he passed away. And from that, we learned that he had not finished the will, even though he seemed to think that he had. And so he died without having any kind of estate plan, which then left his second wife and their two children at risk from the first child coming in and saying, "Hey, I want half of or my part of everything that you and she have built together." And because there wasn't a will, that really could have been devastating to the second family. As it turns out, everybody worked well together and it was reasonable, and it took longer than it should have. But I mean, that's just one of those scenarios where it gets so tricky, and it's so important to just have nailed down, you know, the who, what, when, and where, and how we're supposed to get there. And it's an easy thing to do. It's not. It seems overwhelming when you start talking about it, and probably anybody hearing me, they're thinking, "How in the world does she do this on the regular?" But it really can be a creative way to say I love you to your family, and to let them know I took the time and I did what I wanted to do, and this is the way I want it to go.
I love that perspective because I don't think we think about that a lot of this is actually a way to show love and a way to give a gift or yeah, so thank you for that perspective.
Sure. Yeah. I mean, I think it's one of those things. My husband is a doer, and so when he washes my car, that's his love language, and we have a running joke at my house about that. And I'm a planner, and so when I'm doing estate planning and stuff, he hates that. He hates to talk about that stuff, and he'll be like, "I know that's your love language."
Well, at least I'm impressed that you guys know your love language, so that's a good thing. Well, what kinds of conflicts tend to come up between family members when things aren't set up clearly?
Well, then you have Susie arguing over the piano or over Mama's china, or I mean, it's just as wide and crazy as you can imagine, it can get there. And people get so worked up and angry over, let's say, Granny's quilts because I didn't get one when I was a kid and that was supposed to be mine when she died. So, money and stuff really when you have that interwoven with emotion because you've just lost somebody that you care about, it gets so intense sometimes. It's as bad as the worst case divorce that I've ever done. It
Oh,
can
wow.
be. Because they get so emotionally, attached to the piano or the jewelry, whatever it may be.
Mhm.
And so, for that, I just say, put it on paper and just tell us what to do with it. And if you don't wanna put it on paper, if you don't wanna say, "This is what I want you to do with it," then just say, "Sell it all and divide the money."
Right, yeah. Wow. It is so interesting how the smallest things people will get upset and fight over after someone passes. It's um yeah. So what does a well-structured estate plan prevent that people don't always think about ahead of time?
My goal would absolutely be to avoid probate if at all possible. You can't always avoid it, but what I can do when you properly structure your plan is we can run a probate estate in a minimal way to where it's got to be open, it's got to do the thing, we have to notify the creditors, but the house payments are able to be paid. The stuff can be distributed because we already know what it's doing under the trust. We're not having to wait on a judge to approve it. If we want to sell a house, let's say somebody's got multiple homes and we want to sell one of the homes because we either need to put some more money into the trust or we need to just get that money ready to be divided, you can go ahead and do that. I don't have to wait on a judge. I don't have to wait. I don't have to get permission to list the house. I don't have to get permission to approve the contract. There are just so many things that trust and that proper estate plan can avoid that people can't even imagine when they haven't walked down that road. Or maybe they can and they just are so overwhelmed with what's the process.
Hmm. Well, I think you've explained a lot of what can go wrong if there's any mistakes made along the way. So I think this is a powerful lesson on why it's important to have an estate plan.
Absolutely.
Well,
Absolutely.
thank you so much, Patty, for explaining this and breaking it down for us today.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Shamika.
Good to see you. Well, that's it for today's episode of Ties That Bind Law, Family, and Legacy with Patti Garner. If you have questions about your own estate plan or you want to make sure you're making the right decisions for your family, you can reach out to Patti Garner at Garner Law Firm by visiting pattibgarner.com. Thanks for listening, and don't forget to leave a review, and subscribe to the show so you don't miss the next episode.
Y'all give me a call and let's plan your legacy.
Thanks for watching. Be sure to hit that like and subscribe button and leave us a review in the comments.